everybody, welcome to the Elseworlds Exchange. Of course, I am your host, Sal, but I'll be joined today by two very special guest hosts, Mr. Josh Williamson and Mr. Chip Zdarsky. This episode goes... I don't even think there were rails for it to start with. Check it out.
I have a couple questions for Chip, but I wanted to start off with Chip. You know, what is it like drawing Daredevil? No, but actually what I thought... Chip, come back.
Show is over.
There he is.
Oh,
I actually really
hey,
like
sorry.
that book a lot.
That's amazing. You
I-
moved.
I actually thought what we were...
I have a bookshelf above here, and it fell on my
Yeah.
laptop, knocking the screen down.
It was a very gentle fall, I gotta admit.
I thought what we were doing was we were going to talk about there being like a Flash Daredevil crossover, because even though I don't technically write Flash anymore, I thought that's what we were going to be talking about.
I take
and
it.
I know that Chip
Were you
loves
fired?
the Flash.
Were you fired off the Flash?
No, dude, it was time to go.
I
It
know.
was time to go.
I
Yeah.
figured as much.
What a
I think
genuine
you did-
response.
I think
No,
you did
man, I did
quite-
not get fired.
You did quite well on
No,
it.
Sal and I actually talked about this a little bit yesterday, that like, you know, I had always planned on trying to get to, once I got around like 50, I was like, I'm gonna try to get to 100, 101. And then we kept going to that. And I think they didn't really take me seriously about that. Even a few months ago, like beginning of March, I was talking to them and they were like, oh, okay, what are your plans for after Finish Line? And I was like, the name of the arc is literally Finish Line. I think I'm done. And they were like, oh, and I remember it was funny because the editor was sitting across from me, he had his notebook in front of him. He was ready for me to like tell him my whole pitch for like 101 to 200 or whatever. And we're at breakfast and I was like, no, that's it. Like, I kind of have ideas, but they're all super soft. They wouldn't be good. I feel like this is it. And he was like, okay. And then he closed his notebook. He straight out was like, oh, okay, well, all right. So,
I can make a phone call.
like that was the end of that meeting.
He took his notebooks, started to light it on fire. It's a weird thing to. I mean, I don't think it happens very often where someone leaves a book
Yeah.
instead of being
Voluntarily.
told that it's time for them to leave the book, because we did that with Howard the Duck. Not the same as the Flash, I understand. We did like 16 issues of it,
Yeah.
and they were like, "Oh, what do you have next?" I'm like, "Oh, I think that's it." Like, we told the story, and you could obviously, like, I'm sure if you set aside like a couple of weeks to think of more Flash stories, you could come up with something that you could do it, but
stuff.
But
there are things I
like,
want to do, and there are things I've thought about, especially when it comes to like the sidekicks and stuff. Like, there's little things, but they would always be. It's like I would want to do a collection of little short things that are just like side stories. I feel like I'm definitely done with Barry. So that's part of it. But then nobody wants that. They don't want me to be like, all right, here's like 5 extra issues of me just doing the kids, or just doing these little things that I kind of wish I had done.
Yeah.
That's it. So yeah, I think it is rare. I'm not sure if when people, you know, make the decision of like, I'm done after that many issues or whatever, but yeah.
Yeah.
You?
I'm trying to think of anyone that. Yeah.
I think
Well,
I know at
Jason
least one
Aaron,
other
right?
person, and it's
Who?
you, Chip. Didn't you leave Spectacular as well? Weren't you like, I'm done. I don't have any more to tell.
Yeah, I did. That was kind of like, that was a timing thing. I had an inkling of what I could do after that run. That was, again, like 20 something issues.
Mm-hmm.
But they had like a crossover coming up, and I was like, well, the crossover involved like multiple universes. It was one of those Spider-Geddon style things. I'm like, well, I kind of just did that. Like, in my Spider-Man run, I had like alternate universe and all these different characters. And like, it felt weird to go from that right into another one.
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, this actually seems like a good time to leave. And it wasn't even like how dare we have a crossover? Because I get that's how that works. But I knew I had a couple of issues that I wanted to do, and then I was going to write and draw my wrap up. And I'm like, that's it. Easy enough. Star-Lord, I was fired.
Oh.
That was a straight up cancellation. Have you ever had this, Josh, where like,
oh man, I'm not even sure if I should talk about this.
Issue 2 of Star-Lord came out, and I got a call from my editor telling me it was canceled. Like, issue 2.
Yeah, I mean, I got taken off. I'm gonna say I moved on. I moved on from Justice League Odyssey before issue 1 was even out. Like, issue 1 hadn't even come out yet, and the thing with this is that I can say that it was like I talked to them about it. There was obviously, a lot of struggles with that book.
Yeah.
So before each one even came out, it was like, well, how far ahead can you get on that? And then you can get to like issue 12. Do you think you can wrap to issue 12 and then leave to go do Batman Superman? Batman Superman was the priority. And I had been asking Batman Superman for years.
Oh God, yeah.
And so then when issue 1 hadn't even come out yet, I had written issue 4 maybe. And I sat down and they were like, today is your last day. It was it was the last time I saw you. It was in Toronto.
Yeah.
It was at that convention. They sat me down and they were like, I was sitting there at the bar and they were like, today's your last day on that book, you're moving on. They were like, you're going to go do this other stuff. And I was like, yeah, that makes sense. Because it was like, there's no way I could, they were looking at my schedule too. And there's like, there's no way you can handle all this stuff. And it's time. And, Dan Abbott has basically been asking for a book just like this for years. So it was like, I'm asking for Batman and Superman. Dan Abbott's always wanted to do a team book in space. Like, let's just do it now instead of you writing, for another 6 months on something.
Yeah,
like, just that's the right call. So that was definitely like a moment of like, oh, okay, I guess. Like, I think that's one of the most like, this is the end things I've ever dealt with. Oh, but when I was at when I was at Marvel the first time around, when I was working on Illuminati, that book got canceled. Yeah. I mean,
how many issues did you get?
I got 7.
Okay, yeah.
7 issues. Yeah, they told me I think issue 1 was the only one that was out. And it was at a weird moment because I remember I had just got the job on Flash, and I had just got the job right Haunted Mansion, which were like 2 like bucket list things,
Yeah.
And I actually found out I got the job to write Haunted Mansion while I was in Disneyland. So I was like, I have to do this. Like, this is, these are all coming together. Flash was working out. I had Birthright. I still had Nailbiter going. Looked at my schedule was crazy, and I was like, man, I gotta do something. And so I was like, I don't have to call them and tell them I might have to quit Illuminati. Like, I don't know if I can keep going. The sales weren't there, too.
Yeah.
And then the editor called me and was like, they called me the next day and were like, hey, we'll let you know the book is ending. And I started laughing because to me, I was like, oh, this is the best. This is like, I don't have to quit. Like, I don't have to be that person that quits. I can actually just say like, all right, that makes sense to me. And then they were like, we'll give you this many issues to wrap it up. And I was like, all right, great.
Yeah.
So,
I've had the same thing happen, but in a relationship. like literally, like we'd only been dating a few weeks or whatever, and I was like, oh, this isn't working.
This is over.
And then
a couple days.
And then she was like, we're at my place, and she was like, yeah, I don't know how to bring this up, and I don't know if this is really going anywhere. I'm like, I kind of feel the same way, and like this actually works out really well.
Yes.
I have like a version of that story where I dated somebody, we broke up, and then I like regretted it later, like a little regret. And then I saw them like 2 years later, and I was like, I kind of regretted that. And they were like, oh, well, actually, like I basically did it before they did it. They were like, oh, we were already heading that direction, and you just did it before. I was like, oh, okay, cool. Then we're all good here. But
yeah,
nice.
It works out well.
Yeah. All right, so comic books.
No, I mean, this is just going to be a talk. But did I ever tell you that DC approached me to write backup stories in your Flash when you launched?
No, I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's DC, so they approached like 30 people, I'm pretty sure.
Of course, yeah.
But they approached me. I remember they sent me the first, I think this was the first 2 issues you run. I'm like, oh, this is awesome. Like, because you could tell, like, in those first 2 issues, oh, this is going to be a good run. And I was like, oh, it'd be cool to be a part of this. And the Flash is like my favorite character too. So I was just like, oh, this is going to be so great. And I started to think about it, and I was just like, I was stumped. I was just stumped. I'm just like, guy runs fast. And like, I couldn't, like, because I'm not one of those guys where I like have like the notebooks filled with like ideas for characters.
Yeah.
I had one idea, and I never even sent it in, which was it was the Flash versus a gang of senior citizens called the Turtle Gang.
Dude, you should have pitched this. I'm like sold.
Their whole thing was like, they move slow, like, but they're smart and they're deliberate, and so like they trip up Flash in the weirdest ways. Like somebody manages to slip them like some X-lax or whatever, and so like the Flash has to go to the washroom while they're robbing the bank, and the one thing the Flash can't do fast is frankly shit.
Go to the bathroom. Yeah. Wait it out.
No, he can't. Like if he could, then it would be like insane.
It would be no
Well,
problem.
you know that like a lot of times runners on marathons, they just like do it on the side of the road or whatever.
Yeah.
Did you know that?
Yeah.
That to me is bonkers. So
Yeah.
this whole time we don't even know the Flash might have been doing that this entire time. We have no idea. It's just so fast.
You should let out get DC to put out like because they'll do obviously an omnibus of all your stuff.
Mhm.
They should do a second, like a variant omnibus where they go in and an artist like just adds just slight lines to indicate there's a diaper.
Yeah.
It'd be very easy to
So keep them. That was much less foul than I thought the direction you were going with.
Yeah.
I was like,
just
where-
scenes, just add
where
scenes
is
where he
Chip
goes to the bathroom.
going with this. So Chip, I actually have a folder on my computer that is just labeled Chip, and it is pictures of you in a Flash costume.
Oh yeah. Oh, that was the best find ever.
Yeah.
Fraction
You
and
told me
I-
this in Toronto. Go. You gotta tell this story. Yeah.
Well, just that Fraction and I were in Italy at a comic show called Lucca, and it's awesome. It's like this weird old walled Italian city. You feel like you're in Assassin's Creed, and but it was like a rough trip. Like we were never quite able to get on the schedule, and Matt was kind of down, and every day like walking to the signing area, I'd always walk by this costume shop. And it had like this very shiny Flash outfit in the window. And I'm just like, oh, I really want that so bad. And meanwhile, Ivan Brandon was there with who's the artist he works with? Nick Klein, I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Ivan had the foresight to purchase Mario and Luigi hats for him and Nick. So they would sit at their tables with Mario and Luigi hats. And I've never seen Matt that angry. that we didn't have the idea. So he was in a foul mood, and like I couldn't get him out of it because at first you think, oh, he's joking. Like, of course he's not mad about this. He's like, Ivan came up with this. Like, oh, that's us. That's our thing. And so on my way to our last signing, I popped into the costume shop and I like paid like a stupid amount of money for this Flash costume, and I had to change in the store. Like, there's no change room, so it's just me like. In my underwear,
just in the aisle.
Yeah, in the aisle, so I could race to the signing, cut through all the people, so I could get there on time and make Matt's day. But it's the best. It's like a very shiny, but it's like a one piece. Like the gloves are all part of it, and the mask is all part of it. Like
yeah.
So there's no.
Does it zip up the back?
Yeah. So the mask goes over, zips up. It's it's. Very sexy. Very sexy.
Why do you have like boudoir photos of it? That is the other question.
I was just lounging. That was while we were still in Italy, and there was like a bearskin rug, and I'm just like, it was a long day. I still had the outfit on, so I'm just like, I'm just gonna lounge.
Well, once you get it off, there's no way it's going back on. So like, you got to get all the pictures you can.
A lot of talcum powder.
What did Matt wear after that?
What did
Matt wear?
Not just his regular hipster cool guy outfit. Makes me sick.
But that's cool. I didn't know you pitched for that stuff. I actually found out like
I didn't even pitch. I didn't even send an email.
They talked to you about it. Yeah. I found out like way later about all kinds of stuff like that. Like when I pitched it, I didn't know anything was going on. I just sort of was like, hey, I really want to write this. It was funny. Dan was like, have you heard the story about how I like harassed Dan and giving me the Flash job? I was late. Basically, I had been talking to different people about writing something for DC again, but all I wanted to do was write the Flash. I don't write anything else.
Yeah.
And that was it. If it wasn't that, I didn't want anything else. And so I had this meeting with Dan. It was supposed to be at 3:30, and I was on an image panel. And I get this text from Dan's assistant, and they're like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "The meeting's at 3:30," and they're like, "No, it's at 3." And so I had to like run through the San Diego Comic Con. So you know, you're like upstairs in those panels upstairs.
Oh,
I had to run all the way through. I was wearing like all black, a big black hoodie, this whole thing, and I had to run all through the convention center. I get into the booth, and I was supposed to go to like one of the restaurants or something in the back and talk to Dan, but I think he was annoyed that I was late. But he also was like, we're just gonna go in this little room right here. He was mad about us. I found he was mad about something else later. I found this out, but he was like, "Let's go." Yeah, so he's like, "Let's just go in this little room." You know that they have those little closets at the booth that you can go in. So we went in this little closet and we go in the corner, and he's like, I really want you to do some of these one shots we got coming up, some of these shorts, and I really want you to write Wild Dog. And I was like, no, Dan. And I started like going at him, and I was like, I'm gonna write the Flash, and this is what I'm gonna do. And I didn't realize at the time, it took me a minute to realize what was going on, was that like I'm covered in sweat for one thing.
Yeah.
And I'm bright red, and I'm pumped up, so I'm full on yelling at him in the corner. And I was just chewing him out, and I was like, this is what I want to do, and I want to write the Flash. And I gave him my whole Flash pitch, and he was like, no, but here are my notes. And I remember being like, calm down for a second. And I turned around, and I didn't even realize that Scott Snyder was in the room with us the whole time. And he just had this look on his face of like, what the fuck did I just witness? What just happened?
Wow.
And I remember being like, I feel good about that.
It was a good meeting.
And then 3 months later, I saw Dan at New York, and he was like, I know, you want to write the Flash. And that's when I pitched it again, and I was like, well, this is what I want to do. And he was like, all right, how about this? He's like, I love it. We'll do it as a 12-issue thing, because I'm not sure what's going on with the actual book. So we'll do it as a 12-issue thing over here, and then we can see what happens. And I was like, great. That's what I want to do.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that all that stuff was building up, because I hadn't worked at DC in like 3 years at that point.
Oh, okay.
So I didn't realize they were doing Rebirth or all that stuff. I didn't know that stuff was coming yet.
Yeah.
I just thought I was pitching for the book. I didn't realize they were talking to people. And so then, like, man, I would say like a year and a half later, I would be talking to somebody, and they're like, oh, yeah, I pitched for Flash. I'm like, oh, I had no idea.
Sorry.
And then one time I was at a bar, and one creator from across the room was like, fuck that guy. I was told I was going to get that book, and they took it from me, and I was like, I had no idea. Didn't know about any of this. None of this. It was, yeah.
I don't know, not to name names, but I've heard stories of people who have written more than one issue of a series, not knowing that somebody else was also writing more than one issue of the series. Like it was a bake-off where neither of them knew it.
Oh shit!
And they were actually still writing the issues.
Oh.
Thinking they had it. Like
like they're on issue 3 of an arc that's never coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I had the thing with Star-Lord where editor contacted me. Is like, hey, we want you to write Star-Lord. I'm like, oh, I've never considered Star-Lord. Like I was just doing Howard the Duck at that point, so I'm like, oh, okay. And they're like, yeah, we want you to send us the ideas. Like, here's where it's going to be set up. Like Bendis is taking over Guardians, so it's Star-Lord on Earth. I'm like, oh, okay, sure, Earth Lord, all right. And then they're like, just so you know, there's other people pitching on this. I was like, oh, okay, well, good to know. And then like I kind of let a week go by, and then they contact me and they're like, hey, do you have anything? I'm like, oh, no, not really. Like, I don't know. Other people are pitching, so that's fine.
Yeah.
And then another week goes by, and they contact me and they're like, nobody else is pitching. So I don't know if people pitched and it didn't work. No. Or there was like a ploy to like get me to up my game.
Yeah,
they wanted to
or they just told everybody. I mean, the positive version of that is they said, "Oh, Chip is pitching," and everybody was either like terrified of you,
like, no, I'm not.
Or they were like in honor. They were like, "Well, no, I can't do that shit."
Yeah. Me coming hot off the heels off my drawing a dick book and writing Howard the Duck. I'm sure people were terrified.
That book was a juggernaut, let me tell you. When Howard the Duck was coming out, people were like telling me to be scared of that book. They legitimately, I'm not even joking, people were like, have you been sleeping on Howard the Duck? Because it's fucking dope. And I'm like, no.
That's fair. That's fair.
And then I did read it, and like, Peter Parker is a punk in that book. And I'm like, fuck this guy. And, he thinks Peter Parker's an asshole. He's making him cry all the time. What a stupid book about his ducks. And then,
again, fair.
Well, and then it turns out I'm the asshole, because then it's like, oh yeah, Eisner Warwick creator Chip Zdarsky knows everything about Spider-Man and knows exactly what he's talking about. And like, here's this book, it made you cry, and I'm like, right on, I'm the asshole. Yeah, you got me. Right on. Yeah, Howard the Duck. I guess I'll give it another read. Like,
was there anything that you want to write? Is there something you're like, oh man, because you're saying like Star-Lord, you were like, Is there stuff at Marvel and DC that you're like, oh, that's what I want.
Thank you.
I want that.
No, it's not even like a, I don't know how to phrase this without sounding like a fucking asshole. like when they asked me to write, like, so what happened? Like I did Howard the Duck and I did Star-Lord, and then the Marvel kept kind of pitching me on books to take over, and I just kept turning them down.
Mhm.
And partly it wasn't even like that's not my thing or whatever. It was I was drawing sex criminals. Like it's a full-time job.
Yeah.
Like I'm drawing, coloring, lettering it. Like it wasn't coming out quite regularly, but it was 8 hours a day was devoted to that, no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And so I could only really write one or two things.
Mm-hmm.
So I kind of had to turn stuff down. But I think what happened is they started to go like, oh, like, well, what's this guy got that he's turning us down? Let's figure stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. Then they pitched me Spectacular Spider-Man, and I didn't say yes right away because I still had to think about it. I had to think like, oh, is there a story I want to tell? Like, is this, Spider-Man's like,
is it worth the time? Because like you got only so many hours in the day. Like,
yeah, like I love Spider-Man. Like every picture of me as a child is like has Spider-Man in it on some level.
Yeah.
But you still got to think about it and like not let the fan part of you take over, because then you can end up in a situation where you're just writing a thing that you're way over your head.
Yeah.
Also, I don't, as a rule, I don't say publicly if there's a character or a series I want to write, because it's somebody's job usually. No, it's somebody's job. Like,
oh yeah, that's true. You're coming at someone's job.
Yeah, there are stories in this industry, and I'm sure I don't even have to name names. You probably know the same stories I have, where people will be like telling creators like, "Oh yeah, you're on X book, not X-Men, just X as a
as a placeholder."
Yeah. Oh, I'm coming for that one. Yeah, I'm gonna write it after you. Yeah. No, I'm telling them my ideas. Like actively going for your job. Like there's no other industry like that. No. Like if you're an accountant in an accounting firm, and there's like somebody down the hall, like, oh yeah, your job, like assistant accountant, like I'm coming for that. Like I'm
setting my. They 100% are doing that.
Yeah. No.
See, I used to work in an accounting office, so let me tell you something.
maybe
every industry is the same like this.
Cutthroat.
Man, like years ago I wanted to do a book about MMA, and I remember sitting there talking to all these MMA fighters, and all the stories they told, I was like, this is comic books, man. All of this. My wife is a yoga instructor in here in Portland, and the competition among yoga instructors in Portland is crazy. And it's like there's times she's explained stuff to me, and I'm like, oh my god, it's all the same no matter where you go.
Yeah.
I guess it's the freelance of it all. Like I think that's what those have in common.
Yeah.
Like we don't have jobs. We have we have
gigs
that can be taken away at any moment unless you luck into having a decent contract. And even then, contracts mean nothing. If they want you gone, you're gone.
Yeah.
So the idea of freelancers being pitted against each other, even like in subtle ways like that, is I try to fight that instinct. And then that's not even to say like, I know everyone talks about the projects that they want to do, and for the most part, that's fine.
Yeah.
Or even publicly, sometimes it's fine. But for me personally, just like
that's fair.
I don't know.
Well, because there's also
that being said, I would stab anyone for Batman.
All right, I'll pass along the message.
Yeah. Because that's the thing.
I will warn James. I mean, James is the person I talk to every single day, so I'll give him a heads up.
I've got
never be in a dark alley with Chip.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Next con, when we're
all who knows what'll happen in that alley.
2 years from now, when we're all back to normal, you'll be conning for him.
Yeah,
I mean, well, I can imagine also like there's that subtle concern of like, you say, oh, it'd be really cool to write X character again, not an X-Man.
Yeah.
And a website says Zdarsky wants such and such, and then it puts pressure on editors of that book to be like, sales are a little low. We're letting this writer kind of get their footing, and it's like, but Zdarsky wants to write it. I guess I'll just kick them to the curb and give him the job. Like I know he wants it, so
Yeah, it is a danger.
It can definitely make you paranoid.
Yeah.
I'm like I do count myself lucky in my lack of ability to care about things. my wife doesn't like it because I don't get excited about things. Like I don't really have like that.
Oh, dude, my wife and I have this conversation all the time. I don't have moments of like, I don't get like pumped about stuff, I guess.
Yeah.
That way. Yeah, we talk about this where I'm very measured about a lot of things. So I don't know what that comes from. Maybe it comes from just managing expectations,
mitigating disappointment. Yeah.
I mean, like I've been in therapy for 10 years, so I know very much what the root of it is, and it's it's disappointment. It's childhood disappointment, some
Yeah.
teenage disappointment.
Getting your hopes up, getting let down, so you start.
Yeah.
Man,
So when
I
a
had
good thing happens, it's always a surprise. But also I
Yeah.
don't go too crazy with it.
well, and it can be taken
Yeah.
away, so you're like, like I'm like feeling shame about being joyful about something. Like, yeah, I know that feeling.
Yeah, I was talking to
I shut
an
down the room.
editor-
I'm like, yeah, right. And here's some other personal deep truths, and you guys are like, okay, yeah, boom, show's over.
No, we can get into it. If there's anyone writing comics, they have some deep issues.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's all
Yeah.
kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was talking to an editor before the podcast where he called me to tell me a problem. He was like, I have a problem to tell you. And I was like, all right, what is it? And he explained the whole thing to me, and I was like he was so apologetic before he even started explaining it. And he was like, we have to, basically came down to, we have to add a caption on page 1 of this other crossover thing that directs back into another crossover issue. And I was like, that's it?
Right.
That's the whole thing? And he was like, well, and I was like, dude, I work on worst case scenarios. So I was like,
Yeah.
we build it up like that. I'm thinking like, oh, we're not doing the book, or these things are getting completely moved around, or there's gonna be something completely crazy. So I was like sitting there listening, and I was like, that's it? Yeah, whatever, dude. Yeah, fine.
Yeah.
That's nothing.
Yeah.
Like I was working up myself more
Right.
beforehand. Like if you get that text from an editor who's like, can you talk at 1? And you're like, oh.
Yeah.
No, across the board, don't do that. Like in any part of life. Like, can we talk in 2 hours? Just tell me what you need to tell me.
Or at least the heads up that it's not a big deal.
Give me a subject.
It's not
header.
a big deal.
Yeah.
Not a big deal. Yeah,
Yeah.
nothing dire, nothing a problem. Just we gotta talk about this or this thing. Whatever.
Things are cool, but I need you in an hour. Like that's all.
There are writers who would like flip their shit at like a caption having to be inserted or changed.
Yes.
For sure. Like again, I'm lucky that my job before comics was newspapers, because you can't be precious about anything.
Mm-hmm.
Like the deadlines are so quick, and the editors have to like chop it down to fit the space and add things, tweak things. Like, it eliminates that preciousness.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are times where they'll come to me and they'll just be like, we want to change this line of dialogue, we want to change this little thing or whatever. And you look at it and you're like, yeah, man, whatever, get it out the door.
Yeah.
Like, just keep the train running, you know?
Yeah, unless I feel
moving.
really strongly about it, like there have been moments where like there's a change. I'm like, well, that actually derails the story, and like we need to.
Oh, for sure, yeah. If it derails like a joke or a flow or a context or whatever, or like can ruin a couple pages worth of information, it's like no, please, just leave that one alone. But then you have to explain yourself the whole thing of it. That isn't that big a deal.
And it depends on the project too. Like, I was not fun to work with for the first 6 issues of Daredevil.
Why?
Maybe 7, 8, because like I was so specific with everything, like and everything meant something, and you're kind of pushing things a little bit with a book like that. And so anytime a suggestion would come in from the editor, I'd be like, no, like, I'd be the worst version of myself.
Let me ask you this though. I mean, that book is so well received. Is there a part of you that is like, I was justified? Right. Like I told you no, and I was right.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it's a little bit of both. Like, I recognize that, like, I think the product is better for the fights that I had to have early on. They're not even fights, too.
The conversations.
Sometimes there'd be like frantic phone calls just because something is being sent to press and a change was made that ruins the character's voice or whatever, and it wasn't run past me in time because things, it's not even an editor's fault, like things are just kind of crazy. I think I'm happy that the final product kind of bears it out, but also I feel bad how obsessive I can get with the product. Like, it's to the point where like there's a page in Daredevil that I did the lettering on it because I wanted to make sure that it reflected what I needed the scene to look like. I've, with the permission of colorists, like I've gone in and I've fixed some things before they went to press. Like, I also designed the book so like I would have notes on the recap pages. And
for Daredevil.
Yeah, and like if the letter designer had tweaked a thing in a way that didn't work anymore, line returns, things like that. Cover stuff. I designed a logo too, so like they always run by me now. Logo placement, and sometimes I'll do it myself and I'll send it in. Like it's stupid, and I know it. Like that kind
No,
of.
that's not stupid at all, though. I mean, I do that on mostly creator own stuff. I get a little more in it, but I mean, all the time. Like, there's times where you just go in and you're like, you just ask the artist or whoever the part of your like collaborators are, and be like, hey, this is easier for me if I just take this into Photoshop. If I just like draw on this really quickly on my iPad and send it back to you, it's better than me going back and forth with you. I do that. I don't say I do that all the time. Like I did it yesterday, but you sometimes.
You can
it's
feel it out.
To do.
Yeah, you can feel it out depending on the artist.
Yeah.
If you're crossing boundaries, and I also accept notes from artists on story stuff too. If they're like, sure. I'm tripping up on this, or I'm working with an artist right now, has been announced on Daredevil, that has a deep knowledge of the stuff that we're doing, like the area we're in. And so I'll get notes back like, oh, actually, I don't think this would actually happen this way because of this. I'm like, oh, that's a great note. Thank you. Like, how dare you? But that's a great note.
Yeah.
No, that's always when you're working with somebody you can tell is putting thought into it. Like they're not just like pumping out the page, get it done, but they're coming back to you with like thoughtfulness of like, this is what I'm thinking. What do you think with this? And you're like, oh man, this is great. Like I work with Howard Porter a lot. And he's really thoughtful with stuff. And him and I just get on the phone. We talk out an issue before I even write it a lot of times.
Okay, that's great.
Just to kind of Howard's awesome. So it's it's just awesome to talk some of that stuff out with him. And then you get in there and then you're like, all right, cool, this is what I'm thinking. And then it's just it just makes it easier. There are pages in Flash Year One that I did layouts on. Like the very first page of Flash Year One, I did a really detailed layout of that one because we were using a 16-panel grid on that book, and we were like really using it. So it was like I had to really get in there and be like, no, I mean like this. And there's a page in Speed Metal where I did the layout for it because I was like, this is just easier than explaining it, right? It's like go into Illustrator and just make this is exactly what I mean. Here you go. But I also say like, listen, like if you look at this and you go, I can do this better, please do it better.
Right.
Like tell me what you always. Yeah. 100%. But I definitely do that too. I mean, I worked as a graphic designer. I worked as an art director before I was doing comics full time. Okay. So it's still in my brain. Like I still obsess about that stuff. But you know how it is. Like sometimes, like when you're working on the big two stuff, you have to kind of let go of it. Sometimes, like you have to push away and be like, they're gonna do their thing. That's somebody else's job. And especially with Flash, because Flash was double ship. It was a lot harder to kind of do that at times.
Yeah. There's like a certain like I find usually by issue 10 of a thing that I'm starting to let go. Like once we have once the wheels are going, like I can step back from it a little bit.
Well, then you also know each other, and it's like with Nailbiter. So like Mike Henderson and I, we know each other really, really well, And so it's like, and we've done whole issues like sitting next to each other on an airplane, like a 6-hour flight. We've been like, okay, I'm gonna write it while you're drawing it. Like let's just do that together now and like figure it out. So my shorthand, his shorthand. Like you just know. So now when we write scripts for that, it's like there are times now where he does message me and be like, "What do you mean by this?" And I'm like, "Oh, I thought you would know." And it's like he's like, "Dude, that's like 2 words, man. You got to give me 4." And I'm like, "All right, this is what I meant. There you go." And it's like, "All right, cool." But then that's that means sometimes our comics are almost generated via text message at times. That's amazing. Because you're just like texting each other and being like, "No, I meant like this. This is what I was talking about." It's like, all right, cool.
Yeah, well, I have a bit of that with Fraction on Sex Criminals. Like just kind of the back and forth with the text as he's writing the script, because he'll just send me bits that are fun, and I'll be like, it'd be nice if this was in there too, and like kind of go back and forth. And he writes it on an 8 grid, so so it all like he knows the layout of the page as he's writing it, which has helped me a lot. Like kind of be a better storyteller as well, and also when I have a question for him, he immediately knows the answer,
where it's at and stuff,
visually how to fix it.
When I didn't know this, but so you're a big Spider-Man fan, like a really big Spider-Man fan. Did that get in the way when you were writing Spider-Man? Did you ever feel like, oh, I knew too much?
No, there's partly because it was the secondary title. So because it's secondary title, the pressure is off a little bit. And I also realized on day one, like on the announcement of it, I got so many messages from strangers telling me how to do the job.
Sure.
Oh, dude, yep. That's what it was like on Flash too. Yeah,
Yeah,
that became part of my run almost. Was that idea that like everybody knows who the Flash is and exactly who they're supposed to be.
Right.
yeah,
And it's like I think about that within the world too, because I always think about like the conversations we have in the real world are sometimes the conversations the characters would have.
Yeah.
And like because it's weird, like eventually writers start taking on some of the meta text and moving it into the work, where it's like with the Flash, you know, we would see Barry as this like martyr character that was this perfect superhero because of what happened.
Yeah.
And then over time, when you read a lot of the rebirth stuff that Jeff was doing, and even Mark Waid did with Wally, that became part of the story. Like we would look at Barry and be like, Barry's the greatest superhero of all time, and you know, we put him on this huge pedestal.
yeah.
And then Barry becomes the Flash again, and no one stops talking about him like that. Even in the world, everybody's just like, that guy died for us. That guy's the best.
Yeah.
And so when I got that job, I remember, or not when I got announced that I was doing Flash, and then I think it was like 2 weeks later, it was Emerald City Comic Con, and it was so weird because like 2015 was a year that I did a lot of conventions, and I was always doing really well. I would sit there and I was selling all my image books like all the time. Like I had to go to the image booth and be like, I need more from you guys, and I'd walk back a stack and sell more copies, right?
Yeah.
That Emerald City Comic Con, I made less money than I like ever made at a convention, like ever. And it was because my table was just nonstop people coming to talk about Flash.
Yeah.
But I hadn't even had an issue. I just announced that I was in the book, and the previous round hadn't even ended.
Yeah.
And they were just like, this is what you got to do. Where's my favorite character? What's going on with this? And then just this constant thing of like, this is who the character is. Did you know? And I was like in my head being like, yeah, I love this character. I know this character like I think I know the character like the back of my hand. But yeah, it's so interesting how everyone wants to come and tell you immediately how to do your job or know the character you're about to write, as if you're. It's funny, right? You're like, oh man, I'm writing this book. I have no idea who this character is.
Yeah, and like, it's a weird thing. Like Spider-Man, Flash, like the characters have been around for a long time. Yeah, people imprint on a character depending on when they were reading it.
Yeah, when they started reading it. Yeah, it's always when they started.
Yeah, and I noticed that a lot. Like I could tell you exactly the age of the person that was sending me their suggestions.
Mm-hmm.
And my final issue of Spider-Man was kind of a bit about that. Like I wanted a final issue, but the run was kind of about it. Like I started off with kind of the fun light Spider-Man, and then we just kind of get darker as it kind of went along. Mm-hmm. Because that was kind of the progression of the character and the way people view the character.
Yeah.
And my final issue was like about that, where I wanted to make sure that I showed all these different people talking about Spider-Man and what their feelings about Spider-Man were, to kind of sum up how readers view the character.
I know it exactly because I subconsciously ripped you off in a Flash issue. I didn't even realize it. I had an issue with the Flash where it opened with that, where everyone was talking. It was like Iris was going around interviewing people about who the Flash was.
Yep.
Yeah. And somebody said, they're like, oh man, you must have liked Chip Spider-Man. And I was like, oh,
who?
fuck, I did.
Who?
And I must have. I was like, there's no way that's not what that's from. Like, that must be like, you know, like you basically inceptioned my brain at some point. You know, you got my little safe and you left a little picture of, you know,
it's such a common trope. Like it's not even.
It's a device.
You know,
people use it.
Yeah. Totally, it's a device. But it's an easy way to reflect the readers.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
And engender yourself to them, I think, too, because you're like, there is every reader that is reading your book is encapsulated in a panel, and they're like, right, yeah, this dark-haired character is correct. Like,
I just finished a miniseries. It was a Fantastic Four X-Men mini.
Yeah, congratulations. Yeah.
Well, thanks. I finished a miniseries.
Yeah. Well, you know, it was. You know,
I didn't get fired at issue 3.
It was, it got wrapped. Well, because you got the big delay. You know, there was like issue 3, and then 3 months off, and then the last issue, and it was like the momentum kind of like, you know, but it's out.
Oh yeah.
And people really dug it. You know.
But it was kind of an interesting experiment, because like the way Hickman's been and his team have been playing with X-Men, like, are they heroes? Are they villains? Like, are they justified? I wanted to really work with that, with their interactions with Fantastic Four. And at the end, like I had this kind of big reveal of like a thing the X-Men do to kind of get back at Reed Richards. And it's fascinating. I love watching people online. I don't seek it out, but like, you know, you can't avoid it. Agreeing with one or the other, being like,
Right.
"Oh, I'm so glad you finally showed the X-Men to be villains," or "Oh, I'm so glad you finally showed like the X-Men to be heroes or FF villains or heroes." Like,
Yeah.
it's amazing. Like,
Did that last issue come out already?
it did, yeah, last week.
Last week, yeah.
Oh, okay. I read the first two. I really like those. That's the
thanks.
thing with all the schedule shifting around. It's like you have no idea what anything is. I was talking to a friend this morning because I saw a review of his book, and I was like, "Oh, cool! That means it was an independent book." And I'm like, "Oh, that means that book came out," but he wasn't talking about. Like it said out today, and I was like, "Oh, okay," but he wasn't talking about it on Twitter or anything. And I was like, "I'll retweet him, you know, whatever." So I emailed him this morning, and I was like, "Hey, man, like your book came out today. Why aren't you talking about it? Do you need me? Like, what's going on?" And he was like, "That book doesn't come out till November. It got pushed back. Like, this might have been a date that was at some point it was going to come out. So all the reviews that were embargoed are all happening right now."
Oh my God.
Amazing.
But the book isn't coming. I was like, dude,
That
I was like, and he didn't know. He had no idea.
No,
so of course I was also like the deliverer of these
bad news.
this terrific message to him. He was like, "Oh, that's great. All the advertising is right now, and it does not actually exist until November."
Yeah.
That's just terrific.
Ugh.
That's why I'm like, when are these things out? Like it's when I'm talking to people about when the books are coming out and stuff, it's so weird. I was just texting one of the editors, and I was like asking them about some of the DC books, and I was like, has anything moved? Like, are any dates moving? And they're like, no, everything checks out. We have a Google Doc that we use for keeping track of a lot of the death metal stuff. As I went and looked at that, and I was like, all right, cool, this is great. Actually, Chip, you worked on death metal too, didn't you?
On the I did like a 8-page Harley story.
Yeah, the Harley story. Yeah, it was really fun.
Oh,
yeah,
cool.
it was you and Kari.
Yeah. Kari's amazing.
Yeah, he's great.
That
that story is really funny. It was a good one.
Thanks.
I liked Harley. I don't want to spoil it for people. I thought it was cute. It was a fun story.
Yeah, I like the low pressure toe dipping into the DC stuff. I've done a few like kind of 8-page things for them.
Yeah.
For kind of various anthologies, and yeah, those are a blast. Like you're just you're in and out, and there we go. Perfect.
Yeah, I wish I did more of that stuff. I always wish I was doing more like little short stories and stuff. Like every time they do those anthologies, there's a part of me that is like, I want to do one of those. Just to do like a quick little like, you know, like demon story or something. Just something really simple. Just like, let me tell like a little 8-pager instead of always doing these big giant things. Like I'm always working on events at DC.
Yeah.
I rarely look, you know, it's like either I'm doing Flash or I'm working on Justice League Suicide Squad or Death Metal or Metal and No Justice. It's like, it's interesting. There are other people I see, like, I've seen with this with James on Batman, that James started Detective when I started Flash, but then he's done like multiple runs on things since then. Like he did Detective, then he did
Justice League Dark.
Justice League Dark.
Yeah.
And now he's on Batman. He's been on Batman for a few issues, and I'm like, I'm still doing Flash. I'm still over here. There was this was actually part of why I was like, oh, right now is time. Was I realized at one moment in the spring that 4 years ago I was writing Flash, Birthright, and Nailbiter.
Yeah.
I am still writing Flash, Birthright, and Nailbiter. So that's when I was like, I gotta change things up.
You're a victim of your own success.
That's true. It's a blessing. I get to stay on these books.
I mean, that's basically it. Like, you know, you've managed to create great works that readers want more of, and so you give them more of it, and that's not a bad thing at all.
Yeah, especially for indie books, like the enthusiasm's still there, like which is
for Birthright and Nailbiter and stuff. I know. I do appreciate that I'm lucky that I've been able to do these things for as long and tell the stories. Like we did with Birthright, we get to all kinds of weird stuff in that book because at this point we just know we're going. Like we're gonna go to 50. Yeah. So it was like, you know, issue 41, we had a 6-page spread that was just like one big shot of a battlefield. Yeah. And then issue 44, every page was a splash, and it was just 2 people fighting. So each page was a different move in that fight. So you would never get to do that in most books. Just to be like, oh, I'm gonna have a whole issue where it's just every page is a splash. And it's literally just 2 dudes fighting each other for 20 pages.
So awesome.
You just described the death of Superman. Like,
yeah, I know. Oh, I looked at Superman, and then Kirkman did it in Invincible once.
Yeah. Yeah.
So are you gonna do a Sex Criminals issue that's all splash pages?
Yeah, every page is just fucking.
Or Sex Criminals? I actually don't know this because I'm not. Is Sex Criminals over? or is it?
I've
ending?
got. I'm drawing the final issue right now.
Oh man, that's
Congratulations,
crazy. Is that
man.
weird?
Yeah. The issue before kind of bounces around in time a bit. So I was kind of drawing characters at the end of their life, which is kind of a weird thing after drawing them for so long.
Yeah, I saw that cover. It's issue 69, right? And you have them.
Yeah, that's like it's like our epilogue. Like issue 30 is kind of the final issue, and then issue 69 is like several years in the future.
Yeah, they look old on the
that's
cover.
clever.
I hope that's not offensive.
It's not just the 69 thing. It's also like it's 39 issues later.
Yeah,
like,
yeah,
that's really cool.
Yeah, and but before I started drawing that final issue, I end up drawing. Speaking of the shorts, a 10-pager for Detective Comics, 1027.
Oh, and 1027. Yeah, I do know about that. Yeah.
Fraction wrote a story, and
yeah,
it came in at an amazing time because they pitched us on it kind of pre-pandemic, and then when the pandemic hit, I was looking at the Diamond situation, and I was just like, I don't know if I'm getting paid for the last 3 sex criminals.
Oh my god.
Yeah, dude.
Because if they were not paying their bills, then Image wouldn't be able to pay, this problem.
Yeah.
And so I said to Matt, I'm like, would you mind like bumping that script up in your schedule? so for the first few weeks, I was able to spend time just drawing Batman, which was like a cool dream, but also I didn't have to write as much.
Sure.
Which was nice because I don't know if you had this. Like I found it hard to focus on telling stories in a world that was.
When I learned this lesson a long time ago that when I'm worried about money, that makes work hard.
Yeah.
I mean, the world is also making things difficult. Especially then, there was definitely a time. I think each month I've lost like a week of work, I think, or a week of mental energy, at least each month. Since we've been in quarantine, I would say I've lost enough, maybe a week each month.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah.
I was grateful to just have a thing to draw that, you're still putting thought into it, but not on the.
Yeah, I mean, when DC,
the same type.
they loaded me up with more work than I knew what to do with. I think because it was death metal ramped up right before, so it was like. Yeah. Here's all this stuff we had to write. We had to do all these one shots and all this stuff. And I was like, okay, cool. And then all of a sudden we were doing the crossover with Justice League. So it was like, all right, cool. I'll do that. So it was an interesting time of like my brain I feel like my brain was in two places at once. Yeah. But having the work to do, it was nice. It was also nice to kind of just have those distractions to get to do that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah.
Do you think you would draw more stuff for Marvel or DC? Are you like that's reserved for my thing here and then special occasions here?
I honestly don't know. It was super fun drawing the Batman thing, but it took maybe 2 or 3 times longer than a Sex Criminals page. Just getting used to the style and the designs. Like Matt threw in like 3 different Batmobiles. I'm just like, okay, well, I don't normally draw a Batmobile, so I gotta figure out what this looks like.
Did you make your own Batmobiles, or were you just like Batman 89, Batman this
66?
One?
Yeah.
The story bounces around in time, so I kind of kept the vehicles close to the decade, the feel of the decades.
That's cool.
So yeah, a little bit of Batman 89, but not fully the movie,
Yeah.
It was a ton of fun, but just a lot of work, and I don't know what I'm drawing after Sex Criminals. My wife wants me to not draw. She hates my art. No,
right.
Just because she knows how much time it takes up.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I think it just has to be the right project.
And writing is so much easier. It's so much easier.
Yeah,
it is, frankly. Like besides pandemic brain.
Well, because it is. You can spend I can go on a walk and go outside my backyard. I spend 4 hours walking, doing physical stuff away from a computer, away from a table, and then figure it out and be like, oh man, I got it. I was working on when I was doing Ghosted years ago. I finished an issue. It was a Thursday night, and I finished issue 8. And I was like, all right, 8 is finished. I'm good. I'm gonna go to a fast food place and buy some food. And I'll come back and I'll proofread it and send it in the morning.
Yeah.
And because I was still in that zone, as I was walking, I figured out issue 9, like the whole walk. I was like, oh man, I got back, and I wrote issue 9 that night. Like just literally, I'll pump it out. It was like 7 o'clock, wrote it all the way to 2 o'clock in the morning. Just knew it. Turned it in the next day. Boom. Like 8 had notes and 9 had no notes. So I was like, all right, I figured something out. And I have been chasing that dragon for the rest of my life. Of just like that
What was the
moment,
combination? Yeah, of like walking.
figuring that out.
Yeah.
But that goes
That's amazing.
you guys are stuck at a table for 8, 10, 12 hours. Like literally just hunched and doing it.
Yeah, there's a satisfaction from knowing that the drawing takes the same amount of time for the most part. Like I know a page for me takes, if I sit down, draw without looking at the internet, doing anything, wearing my flash diaper, whatever.
Bring it back around.
It'll take me 5 hours. 5 hours from beginning to end if I'm fully concentrated on it. A script could take me a day, could take me 5 days. Like it's so hard to do.
Yeah, Kirkman said it was like I said this on something, but he was like, a script takes me 3 days or 3 weeks.
Right.
Yeah, and I think about that all the time. That's essentially how it is. Like there's times you just know it and you feel it, and you're like, I can write this in a day or two.
Yeah.
And there are times you just pick at it.
Do you have the thing too, like you're talking about like doing activities and thinking of stories? I can no longer listen to podcasts because that time is reserved for thinking of story. Like if I go for a walk, it used to be I'd put on a podcast, but now if I go for a walk, I'm like, all right, let's think about Howard the Duck or whatever. Like,
right.
Yeah, that's exactly it. Yeah, I can't. Yeah. People talk about that where they're like, they'll go for walks or jogs, whatever, and listen to podcasts, and it's like, no. That's what it is. I mean, I'm So what I do is a lot of times I'll go for these walks, but when I start figuring stuff out, particularly dialogue or scenes or stories, I'll actually record myself talking to myself.
Nice.
And when I get home, I'll play it back and listen to myself, and then I'll type up either dialogue or type up whatever it is, and sometimes that's how scripts get done, is I'm just retyping it out, and then I'm kind of editing it because like I'm listening to myself and I'm like, oh, that's a good line, that's a bad line, that's a good line. I can kind of type them so it adds, it's like another stage of editing. But my neighbors think I'm a crazy person sometimes because they'll see me walking and I'll be like, not necessarily acting out the scenes, but like a little bit.
Yeah.
Like I had this one, it was Flash issue 27 I was writing, and it was a scene between Barry and Eobard yelling at each other. So I have a recording of myself playing both parts and being Eobard literally yelling at Barry Allen. And my neighbor, I remember that one. It was one of my neighbors down here. They were like, when I came back around, I was like, all right, I did it. They were like, can I ask you a question? Like, what was happening? Like, were you talking to somebody, arguing with somebody? And I'm like, oh, no, I'm writing. And they're like, oh, okay. That's weird.
Sure.
But I have a process of doing that. But I can't listen to podcasts. I can't do like videos, movies. I know some writers, they'll have like movies or TV shows playing in the background.
Oh, that's crazy.
No, I actually started getting like weird about even playing movie scores because I would realize like I would write with the movie score playing, right? Yeah. And then I would turn the script in, and it's weird. It's like either editing it or while I was writing the scene, I would almost think that scene was more impactful than it was because the music would be like Duel of the Fates from like Phantom Menace or something. And I'm like, oh man, this is awesome. This is a conflict. Oh, this is tense.
Yeah.
And then, I've heard this was a thing that a lot of screenwriters dealt with when they were coming over to comics, was that they had gotten used to actors acting out their dialogue. Mm-hmm. And so they didn't realize you have to like do that extra bit of work on the comic side. Yeah. Because I was an actor and a director and all those people, they take those lines and they add so much to it. Yeah. That stuff is empty from the comic. So you have to go back in and like add that acting or that emphasis to make it more impactful, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, a couple of times, even if you're dealing with an artist where you don't know if they're going to get the facial expressions right, sometimes I'll send photos of my face.
Yeah.
Doing the thing.
Yeah. Do you know Amadeo at Black Label at DC Comics?
No, I don't think so.
He works on Black Label stuff, but I have a picture of him punching himself in the face because he was trying to explain it to an artist how to make a particular angle work
Yeah.
with like, you know what I mean? Like, because you really want to get it right. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, so now I just have that on file. It's in my
That's
Amadeo
great.
folder.
Yeah.
And then I just send that. I just send that to artists. Like, I mean, like this.
Yeah.
Right.
This is what I want.
It's funny. I don't have the dictation thing, but like I do have like the speech to text.
See,
Like
I
that's
can't
how
get
I
that to
usually
work
handle
for
it.
me.
But that's the thing. So I sound even crazier because I'm walking down the street. I'm going, Bruce Wayne punches Clark Kent.
Yeah,
Like
I
you're
Yeah.
every syllable just sounds ludicrous.
Right.
yeah.
And then
yeah,
it types to something different, and I get angry, and then I do it again.
Yeah.
yeah. I tried that. There was a program, and I was like, I struck gold. I'm gonna use this from now on. It'll like, because I don't have to type it back up. I can just do it, and then I can like transcribe it, look at it, and be like,
Yeah.
all right, cool. This is all I'll use. That did not work at all. That was no. I remember getting the first one and being like, oh, this is unusable. This is all the words are wrong because I mumble and I talk too fast. So you take both those combined, along with this, and it's like, yeah. But what's funny, like sometimes I'll listen to myself, and because I'll go for these walks, like especially right now, I'll go for a walk to the school and back, and then like maybe like 2 days later I'll listen to it because I like just don't have time, so I'll listen to it, and then not only do I hear myself talking, I hear myself talking to myself about other things that are going on in the neighborhood that I forgot about. So there's times where I'm like, oh, God damn it, why aren't you wearing your mask? Like that. Sometimes in the middle of me doing some kind of thing, it'll be with that. And, there's times where all of a sudden I'll be like, oh, what's this person doing? Like, I'll just have kind of these weird like non sequiturs pop in the middle of me talking about what's happening in the Justice League or happening in Flash, and I'll just be like, yeah. It makes me laugh when I'm sitting there. I'm like, what was that about? Why was that? Or it'll be like, remember to tell your wife this, but I should have listened to that like 2 days earlier.
Yeah.
I'm like, oh, I completely forgot about that. Well, that's
God, these are ludicrous jobs.
Oh, I know. I had a moment when I first started working on the Justice League crossover where I typed Nightwing and Detective Chimp are riding a robot horse through Slaughter Swamp. And I remember just staring at that sentence and being like, what?
Yeah.
Like, this is what I did just now. This is what people are paying me money to write about Batman's sidekick and a chimp riding a robot horse.
Yeah, I can't talk to my wife about any of it. She starts laughing or just being like, well, that's ludicrous. Like, like she's got a real job,
Yeah.
Doesn't have time to hear me.
My wife always jokes with me about how, like, no, I don't talk about my job. And she's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. I also talk about things that are happening on comics or who I talk to that day. Yeah. And my wife thinks I have a million friends named James and a million friends named Steve. And I'm like, there's like one James I talk to and like maybe 3 Steves, maybe.
Yeah.
But she thinks they're all like, she basically thinks everyone works in comics names are just James.
Right.
Just assumed that's what happens.
Yeah, for my wife, it's Nick. Because it's Nick Spencer and Nick Lowe. And she's always getting them confused. I'm like, in the Spider Office. I'm like, well, that doesn't help.
That doesn't help.
That's also a ludicrous phrase.
Yep, in the Spider Office. Yeah.
That
sounds like an office you avoid. That doesn't sound like a place of business.
Yeah.
That's funny. Now you're just visualizing what a Spider Office is like.
It's
right,
like
so what did we solve today? What did we fix today?
Yeah, well, I think you taught each other great methods of how to dictate your scripts, which I think is really valuable.
I think we realized that the DC Marvel crossovers would probably be Daredevil, Flash.
Naturally.
Yeah, it's Daredevil and Flash, but then we get Ninja Turtles in there. I had this whole thing in my head. I was like, the Ninja Turtles have to get involved somehow.
Well, because the Ninja Turtles and Daredevil.
Yeah, if like something happens where he gets hit when he was a kid, I don't know. There's got to be something there. There's something. This is the summits. Summits. We sit there and you either come fully prepared with the whole presentation, or you're like, I have this thing. Go to the room.
Yeah.
That's when you've probably done too many of them. Like, the first one you go with like your typewritten notes and your.
Actually, my favorite part of the job, though, I love being in the room and about comic book junk and just bouncing ideas around and going on the whiteboard. Even though I refuse to write anything on the whiteboard,
really,
I always have like somebody else do it because I can't do it.
Yeah, we never used the whiteboard really. I think once we used the whiteboard at the retreats that I went to. It was just like keeping track of like infinity stones or something like that.
Right. Yeah, you got to
Oh
visualize it.
no, we will use the whiteboard like crazy people. I have so many pictures of whiteboards on my phone dating back to going back to DC, and it's funny because there's times where I'll look at them, and there was one I saw recently. It was a picture of Tom King, and he was making like a funny face, and we were at this summit in New York, and I was like, oh, this is a funny picture of Tom. I should post this online. And then I realized the whiteboard behind him revealed so much stuff. Like, not even revealed all these future things, but all these things that didn't happen. Because had a timeline behind him, so it was all this stuff that didn't happen. It also had like creators' names on it that I'm not sure if they worked on stuff or not. So I was like, oh no.
Also some of his previous CIA knowledge was up there.
Yeah, a couple of really there's a knock list up there.
The knock list, yeah.
There's not a lot of writing down, but maybe I haven't been there for like kind of the big company-wide kind of crossover events. Like I wasn't there for Secret Wars or Civil War 1 or 2. So
yeah, me neither. Yeah.
No,
I'm trying stuff up, but Flash. And what do you do again? Daredevil. They're crossover. Yeah.
I mean, police scientist, lawyer.
That's what I was thinking too. He's a lawyer, police scientist. So it's like maybe Barry messes up on a case, and then he needs someone to defend him, and that's where Matt Murdock comes into play.
Perfect.
We did it.
So you did.
And it becomes a whole legal drama.
Yeah. That's a good thing in their superhero stories is two men standing in suits talking for like 20 pages.
Yeah. People always pitch like Daredevil, Batman, but that just feels like obvious.
Naturally, yeah.
Like I kind of like the ones where just be like conflict, like Captain America and Lobo.
Right.
Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead.
I was just thinking like I would love to do like Winter Soldier and all the Robins.
But that's cool though. Like
he is a Robin.
Sidekicks. Sidekicks meeting. They can have conversations about domino masks.
Yeah. He's like
better, and what kind of glue they use.
Well, and how messed up it is. They were both child soldiers. Like,
but you're right. Like everyone wants to do like whatever is the biggest thing. When I was a kid, they did a I think it was Wizard. I might be wrong, but
it's probably Wizard.
They did a amalgam contest where you could like draw your own character. And right. And so I was always trying to figure out like the weirdest combinations, and so I figured out the combination I did, and I drew this picture of and sent it in for this contest. It was called Green Nova. It was Green Nova, and it was Oliver Queen landed on the island, on Star Island, and then he found the Nova helmet or something, and then became Green Nova. That was my whole pitch. I drew a cover and everything, and I never heard back. I don't think there ever was a winner to that contest, or nobody just told me because they felt bad because I didn't win. But
maybe they realized it was like illegal or something.
Very possible. It's so funny.
Copyrighted character combinations.
They didn't seem to care back then.
Idea.
Yeah,
it might not work out.
Yeah,
but I mean I was thinking about amalgam recently. There was some cool combinations in there and things that were a little different, and then obviously the ones that were really obvious. But if you crossover stuff, I'm not even sure what I would want to crossover with. There's characters from Marvel I'd want to steal. I wish that DC could steal Doctor Doom and Green Goblin. I feel like those are
and just trade universes.
Cool.
Yeah,
bring them over. There was some rumor, right, that they were going to do that after.
Yeah, I talked with Ron Mars a couple of months ago, and he mentioned because he wrote one of the DC Marvel. He was the DC guy for the DC versus Marvel book.
They were going to trade characters.
They were going to trade characters. Vision and She-Hulk, I think.
Who was it?
It was She-Hulk and I think Vision.
Was it Vision?
I think it was Vision. It was characters where it's like, well, who gives a shit?
I know it was She-Hulk. But who was the character on the DC side?
Oh, that's right, the DC character. I think it was like maybe I was thinking of Red Tornado.
Batman.
Batman. I'd love to see. We saw that.
What year was that?
1990. I thought it was 4. Yeah, 6. It's 6. You're right. It was 96.
Yeah. See, it would never happen now because now these companies have realized that literally every character can gross $100 million if they want them to.
Yeah, they would never do a licensing trade.
Oh man, could you imagine? Yeah, I don't know who the DC character was. That is gonna bug me.
Right?
Like if 10, 15 years ago,
like it was something that they were like, we could do without that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I remember,
Right. Yeah, they were characters that they wouldn't have missed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Dr. Doom and Green Goblin, steal him. What were
Yeah.
you gonna say, Chip?
I was just gonna say, like, who would like 10, 15 years ago, if somebody said, "Oh yeah, DC can have Rocket Raccoon," like,
Right.
yeah, sure, like, doesn't matter to us, but like,
Oh
also
yeah.
Oh, I know. Could you
giant movie,
imagine?
like, it's insane.
Yeah,
Yeah.
my daughter knows who Rocket Raccoon is. You know, like
Yeah,
she's funny.
Yeah.
She likes Guardians of the Galaxy, and she's never seen the movie. She just knows who they are,
yeah.
and so she's always like, "Someday, I'll be old enough to watch that movie." She's really funny about it because she's only 4, and right now she's obsessed with Spider-Man. Like Spider-Man, every day wants to talk about Spider-Man. She wants to just, it's getting me like back in that zone because I've always liked Spider-Man when I was a kid, but I haven't
Yeah.
thought about it as much. Other than like the movies, and I still read the books, but
Yeah.
when I was a kid, I was obsessed with it, and so now she's obsessed with it. My wife was like, "I can't believe she's obsessed with Spider-Man." But, she has like a Spider-Man costume that she wears. This morning we had to like get it away from her so we could clean it. I was literally like, "Look at this thing; it is filthy. Look at it. Look at the mask. You can see the dirt on the face of the mask."
Spider-Man wouldn't let his mask be dirty.
What's that?
Spider-Man wouldn't let his mask be dirty. That's what you got to tell her.
Yeah.
That's not totally true. I always like, don't. He smells, right? It's like an ongoing joke that Spider-Man smells.
She doesn't need to know that.
But she hasn't seen Spider-Verse yet, but she knows who everybody is. Like she loves Spider-Ham. Like she has a Spider-Man Lego that she's like just carrying around with her sometimes. And so she just really likes all the Spider-Man like mythology. I bought her a bunch of those like IDW books. She has a little chair over here that she can sit in my office and read. And so she has all these like the IDW Spider-Man books and stuff.
Yeah.
She is super obsessed with it. And then what's really funny is she calls Spider-Man 2099. She calls him Spider-Man PG-13 because my wife. One day we were in the living room and we had already watched all the most recent Spider-Man cartoon. Then I was like, well, which of the movies could she watch? Like, can she watch any of them? Can she watch Tobey Maguire ones? Can she watch any of the movies? And my wife was like, if any Spider-Man movie is PG, then she can watch it. And my daughter was in the room when this was happening. And so she was going through all the movies and she was like, PG-13, PG-13, PG-13. Then I was like, all right, we'll watch the older cartoon because they have like a Spider-Verse episodes or whatever, the one that was from 2012, 2017.
Okay.
We watched that one, and Spider-Man 29 was in that at the beginning. And ever since then, she just calls him Spider-Man PG-13. It's just the funniest. And she has the Lego for him, so she'll be like, I like Spider-Man PG-13.
That's
we haven't watched Spider-Verse yet because I don't think she can handle Peter dying at the beginning.
Yeah.
Like
if she's obsessed with Peter, like
she is, and she gets
watching him die might be kind of traumatic.
Well, even when she watches the cartoon, it's really funny to see a 4-year-old because the new one, the villains were like the Jekyll and were the Vulture a lot.
Yeah,
the villains of the new one, like they were like the big bads of the seasons. And to have a 4-year-old screaming at the TV like "Go away, Jekyll! Go away!" and like yelling at the Jekyll, and so with that, she gets worked up sometimes. And we were like, okay, there's no way she watched Spider-Verse yet until. Because I don't know about you guys, like I remember watching Transformers in the theater when I was a kid, and like Optimus Prime dying like messed up my head. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like sitting there watching it, and I imagine that the day she watches that, that's gonna be her Optimus Prime is watching Peter die at the beginning, even though she understands, she's not gonna. I'm curious if when the other Peter Parker shows up, if she's gonna be like, that's a different Peter Parker, so no, he did die.
Right.
Or is she going to be like, cool? Because we were... go ahead.
I was going to say, you just got to sit her down and explain the multiverse theory and be like, listen, like, death is meaningless. There's a replacement for everyone. When mommy and daddy die, there's a mommy and daddy someplace else.
Oh, yeah.
You don't even exist. Well, there's 1,000 of you. You've died 1,000 times.
I mean, she's watched Rick and Morty, so she understands the multiverse.
Oh, no.
I'm just kidding. No, she has not watched Rick and Morty. My wife would murder me. However, I have Rick's like portal gun in my office, and so sometimes she'll run and grab it and run around the house. And, she's very funny. She knows a bunch of like nerdy stuff that I'm always surprised by what she knows and doesn't know. She knows some of the superheroes and stuff.
I feel like between you and me, we know enough people who probably are associated with or are working on the Spider-Verse movies that we could convince them to do just like a 1-second bit that they can insert where it's like a dead Peter Parker just like winking at the camera or whatever.
Yes.
Or just something like
Just for the parents.
Some sort of note that's just like, he's fine.
Right.
He's all right. Yeah.
I just insert that in. This is the version that your kids can watch. And
that you watch.
Well, do you guys hear the story about like how they were telling parents when Infinity War happened? They were telling parents like, this is the time when Thor hits Thanos with the axe and says, "You die for that." Pick up your kids and take them out of the theater, and they'll be like, "Oh, Thor beat Thanos. The movie's over," and like that's the time to leave, because like otherwise your kids are gonna lose their shit. And
I mean, but most kids will be like, "What the hell? The movie's not over. I can tell. Like you're taking me."
True, and yet I
unless
heard
they're like that little, they're like, "Okay, it's time to go."
Right? Yeah.
You know, did you ever see that video where that dad? He didn't do it to his kids. He did it to his grandparents. But he took Toy Story 3.
Yes.
When they're going down the assembly line thing, and he edited it so like as they're about to go, he fades to black.
Credits.
And then credits start rolling. And he recorded it. He recorded like his grandma or something sitting there watching it and being like, "What the what?" Like,
yeah. What have they done?
You're watching your kids
amazing.
Are watching this?
Yeah.
Yeah. I saw that later and it blew my mind.
Yeah.
The end of I always forget which Avengers movie is the one with the cliffhangers. Infinity.
It's Infinity War.
Infinity War.
Yeah, it's Infinity War. Yeah, so
Endgame is easy to remember because it's the end.
Because it's the end. It's the end, of course. I had this thing where Leah Thompson, the actress from Howard the Duck.
Yes, from Howard the Duck. Not Back to the Future. Howard the Duck.
She was in that too?
Are you fucking with me?
Yeah, that's a great movie. Anyways,
I'm sorry.
Because we put her in Howard the Duck the comic. And,
yes, that's right.
And so she had to sign likeness rights and stuff. And Joe gave her a piece of art, and they had a really nice time. But she ended up contacting me later on, and being like, "Hey, it's Leah Thompson." I'm like, "Oh, that's weird."
Yeah.
And she's like, "Oh, I'm a director now." She directs a lot of sitcom stuff. And she's like, "I think now's the time to bring back Howard the Duck as a Marvel movie, and proper within this MCU." I'm like, "Oh, yeah, obviously, sure, that makes sense." Mm-hmm. And so I worked with her on like coming up with a story treatment for it, and even Joe Canonis even helped by penciling, key scenes from the pitch, and I painted them up. And but it was around that time that Infinity War came out. I remember getting this email from her with like her agent's email in it, being like, "I just saw the movie. Half the characters are dead now. They're dead. Everything's changed. Like our pitch doesn't work anymore. They're all dead." And she's sending me this like, "Oh my God, like what are we gonna do? Like we want to use this character, that character, and they're dead now." I'm like,
they're coming back.
Coming back. Like, so it's not even kids. Like they're adults. They're just like, what? They killed off Spider-Man?
Yeah. Like, when we watched that here, we watched it on like when it came on like video demand or whatever. I'd already seen it in the theater, but then I saw it. My wife watched it, and the moment that movie ended, she literally stood up in our living room and she goes, "Fuck this movie," and walked out of the room. And she had to go upstairs for something, and she was like, "No, fuck this movie, fuck this movie." And I was like, "Honey, listen, they're all gonna come back." And she's like, "They killed all of my favorite characters. Every character." Like, she's like, "I don't care about the survivors. They killed all of my favorite characters." And I was like, "They're gonna come back." And then she came back and she's like, "Listen, I know they're gonna come back, but I promise you, whatever their plan is bullshit. It's bullshit. There's no way whatever they do is gonna make sense." And then she was like, and I was like, "Well, listen, like," she's like, "How are they gonna beat Thanos? How are they gonna beat him?" And I was like, "Well, I don't know if we're sure what's happening, but I imagine like Captain Marvel's gonna come down and beat him up." And she was like, "Bullshit. Bullshit. I don't care about that. Bullshit." And then so when we watched Endgame, I was so nervous. Like,
it better be good.
Is she gonna be mad? The fact that she even watched it was like remarkable. And then she watched it and she was like, "Okay, I will accept that. However, I have no idea why he's dancing with that woman at the end of the movie." So there you go.
Right.
Yeah.
So no, it's a payoff for 20 plus films.
Yeah.
Only if you've seen every movie. And she never saw Civil War. I think we only watched like a little bit of Civil War just because we were about to watch Black Panther, and she was like, "All right, I want to know the gist so I can watch Black Panther.
Right.
I want to know that much of it." Yeah.
Black Panther, you're like, you're good. Just go see it.
Oh yeah, once you watch
Like,
Black Panther, you're like, "Oh, this is
yeah, you're fine.
that opening scene of Black Panther is so good."
Yeah.
I remember when I saw that for the first time, I was like, "Oh, this is different. Like this is a good opening of a movie to like bring you into this world."
Yeah.
Yeah.
It stands on its own.
Yeah. The experience in the theater is second to none. Like for Black Panther specifically, just based on the diversity of audience and the reaction, I was like, right on. Like this is nice. I'm part of something special here. Cool.
Yeah. When I saw Endgame, I had like a couple moments of like emotional stuff in the movie I was surprised by. Like I didn't anticipate like the things that were gonna get me. There was like little stuff where I would be like, I could feel it, like either the goosebumps or the like the one tear, when Cap gave Falcon the shield at the ending, that got me like really good. I did not anticipate that. I was like, it got me. I knew that was gonna happen though too. Like you could see it going into it. You're like, that's gonna be a thing.
Yep.
Yeah.
But when I saw it in the theater, I legit had like, I could feel it in my chest. I was like, oh my God, like it really got me. And then, but when I saw the movie, Bendis and Matt were actually sitting right in front of me.
Okay.
Because there was also a part of me that was like looking at them occasionally to be like, are they having any emotional reactions watching this at all? Like, what are their feelings on this?
Yeah.
Even if they like laughed at something, I was like, what was that about?
Yeah.
Like if they only laughed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there's that scene where Captain America is in the elevator and he leans over and he's like, "Hell Hydra," and I remember I started laughing my ass off in the theater, and I imagine there were some people that were like, "What?"
Like why is
that was a really funny moment. Like I have never asked Nick this, but I need to ask him. I guess I can just ask him. But like when he was in the theater, did he have a moment of like, haha? Or was it the opposite? Like what was his emotional reaction to that? Was it like, oh, even here, or was he like, yes?
Or the third one was, where the fuck's my check?
Yeah. Do I at least get a special thanks credit in here? Come on.
Yeah.
He's like, I had to pay for my tickets.
So they're obviously I had the same thing with Endgame. A lot of like cool moments that like hit me harder than I thought. But there's one point where I just started laughing. I was with my brother, and it was like the big fight scene at the end, and it was like Spider-Man on a winged horse with the Infinity Gauntlet. I was just like, this is the most ludicrous fucking thing. Like, there's no way I could ever predict in a million years that at one point I'd be seeing a live action movie where Spider-Man's on a winged horse with the Infinity Gauntlet. Like, I just was laughing my ass off. It was like a joyful thing.
Right.
Just like, man, I can't believe they pulled that off.
That kind of goes back to what Josh was talking about, where it's like telling a story and there's just the joy and the fun of being in this job, where it's like, I just wrote a story about like how a chimp man and like Batman's sidekick are riding a mechanical horse through a swamp of sadness. And I'm seeing a movie like Hollywood's finally kind of catching up with the fun of like, you can do anything, right? Like, anything can happen.
Well, I remember the years leading up to Spider-Verse coming out.
Yeah.
Like I was getting details from people in comics and film that were like associated with it.
Cool.
And every time they would tell me something about it, I'd just be like,
no way.
Fucking idiots. What are they doing? Like, there's no way that's going to work. They're making this animated movie that they think is going to like not go straight to DVD.
Right.
Featuring like Spider-Ham and Spider-Gwen and Miles and like all these other random Spider-Man characters. Like, the idea of a multiverse, like,
to explain that to
to do it in an hour and a half, 2 hours, and have it like have emotional resonance. I was just like, oh man, this is gonna be just the worst. And then the trailer came out, I'm like, oh, wait a second, and then I started to hear the feedback as the cuts just kept getting better and better. I was like, oh my god, like, I can't believe they're gonna pull this off. And like seeing that in the theater, I was like, I think it was like the first one of those movies that my wife actually enjoyed.
Yeah,
really.
I really like that one a lot. Yeah. It's I think that when you go back and you look at like the first X-Men movie, where it seems like there was a hint of like being embarrassed by like just doing it. Like I have this thing where I'm like, if this thing has worked and people liked this particular part of it for this amount of time and it attracted this audience, why would you change those bits and pieces of it?
Right.
Because like you watch the first X-Men movie and it's like clearly they're influenced by like the Matrix. You know, there's certain things that kind of made certain things happen. And even Blade, right? Like Blade, the thing is when you watch that first Blade movie, that's Blade.
Yeah.
Like he looks like that. So it made sense when they're like, all right, so let's put everybody in black leather.
Right.
But
then you watch Iron Man, and Iron Man is like, that's Iron Man. That's a suit. That's an Iron Man suit.
It was the perfect first kind of Marvel movie because like you could buy it.
Right.
Like,
yeah.
Like, you know, it wasn't like Thor colors or anything like that. Like it wasn't like full on kind of Marvel stuff. Like it's a guy in a fucking
and it's red and gold
military thing, and it's red and gold, but it's just, you know, it's a little muted. It's not like crazy.
Yeah.
The X-Men thing, like they shot it here in Toronto, and I don't think I've ever been more excited for a movie. And a buddy of mine auditioned for Wolverine.
No shit.
And he was like the bartender in the bar that I would go to. He's like, yeah, you're a comics guy. Like, what do you know about Wolverine? I'm like, oh, pardon me, sir. And he had like script pages, and it was like a danger room scene that wasn't in the final movie of Logan and Scott and Jean. And I was like, this is the greatest thing I'm ever seeing. Like just having that script page just blew my mind. Like the fact that they were going to just go all in and do it. Obviously they didn't do like danger room stuff in that one, but I ended up being an extra in it.
Really?
I was cut because I quit. I was an extra in the opening scene. Myself and a buddy were just like, well, we got to do this. Like it's an open call. Like, and so we went down there, and it was for the opening like concentration camp scene.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And my buddy was a little too Aryan for it.
Right.
So he didn't make it, and he was too tiny to be like a soldier. So they sent him home, and I got the gig. And but it was really lonely going to do that by myself.
Yeah.
Even though it was like such a cool thing. And I remember they paired us off. It was like I didn't know they were going to be hitting us with all this rain until they gave me like a plastic costume to put on underneath my clothes. So you're wearing like this plastic suit, and you just sweat. It's just trapped in the plastic suit, and then you have your like 1940s clothes or whatever on over top.
Yeah.
And they would pair us up with like parents, loved ones. So I got paired up with this one woman, and she was like, all right, this is our big break. Like, what? And she's she's like, if you get a speaking line, if you and they keep it, like you get bumped up, you're not just an extra anymore. Here's our backstory. You're my son Anya, and I'm your mother, whatever. I'm just like, I don't know if that's how this goes.
Yeah. And
then, you know, they yell action, and they just hit us with this rain, and we're just walking through all this mud, and there's German shepherds barking, and it's actually kind of scary. Like, it's a horrible scene. I'm just like, oh, I'm like, where's my friend? And we get up to the front, and you know, it's a scene where like everyone's being parted from each other, so Magneto can eventually have that happen to him.
Mm-hmm.
So the German soldiers grab me, and they go to pull me away from my mom. And this woman just starts screaming. She goes, no, my Anya, no, my Anya. She's like pulling my jacket sleeve, and I kind of want to get away from her, but and I could hear it rip. I was like, and we hear Bryan Singer yell, cut, very loudly. And I don't think he came down to see us, but it was like the AD came down, and they stopped the rain. They gathered all of us extras around, and he was like, what the fuck was that, to this woman? She's like, oh, you know, I was just getting in character. And he's like, why would you be speaking English? Like, we're like, what are you doing? And I was like, oh, this is just horrible. And so we kept having to do the takes over and over again, just getting hit with rain all day. And it was a 2-day shoot. I just didn't go back for the second day.
So they were like, oh man. When I was in college in Long Beach, one of the ways to make easy money was to go either be you could be a production assistant or like a gopher for a day. You're like, all right, cool, I'm just gonna run around and grab you guys coffee for a day. And if those jobs weren't available, the next best thing was to be an extra in something. Right? And so and those things, they just give you like $100. There's times where at the end of the day, and they're like, here's literally $100 bill, and you're like, all right, cool, thank you.
Sweet.
go do whatever,
Fantastic.
right? So there's like a ton of stuff from like the year 2000 that I was in. And yeah, it was always these really weird experiences, and people would talk like, like me and my buddy would do it, and we would just sit there and you're like, use bullshit, and they tell you what to do, and you go, you do whatever. But there would always be people there who took it so serious.
Oh my God, yeah.
So serious. I was working on the 70s show, and there was this guy who was just like, I mean, he was like Jack Black and High Fidelity type attitude, but also just like, I'm gonna make it, right?
Yeah.
He had
Yeah,
this persona, this whole thing of like, I'm gonna make it. And he would make these speeches about like in the middle of like when they would have everybody go to like the little room to just chill out. He would make these big speeches, but a lot of times they would keep everybody in the stands when they were gearing it up they would prep everything throughout the week, and then they would film on Friday.
Yeah.
But all week long they're rehearsing, they're prepping, and so you're there all week. And this is a great gig for when I was in college, because I was also trying to like learn how to write comics. So I would just sit there and write, and then it was like, oh, go hit your mark. It's like, all right, cool, I'll stand here for an hour.
Yeah.
I remember when they had to film something on a Thursday. It was for like a flashback sequence during the 70s show, which they were going to film it the day before. And this dude fell asleep in the stands, and his snoring was so loud. They kept having to stop filming to basically go be like, what is that? It's so crazy. And that guy was funny, man. Yeah, he would give these big speeches and stuff. But yeah, those experiences of just like, that was like maybe 3 months of my life. It was just a moment in time where I would go and I would do stuff. There'll be times where my wife and I will watch a movie, and I'll forget like I'm actually in a scene, and I'll be like sitting there, and then I'll be like, oh, pause it real quick. See that right there? That's me. That's me when I'm like 19 years old.
That's
I was like, oh, I need $100. Should do something.
Oh wow.
You watched like the first episode of 6 Feet Under. You see me in there. There's a couple different things, but yeah, there was a time where it was like, because I actually preferred doing the production assistant stuff where you're just a gopher.
Yeah,
that was kind of fun. It felt like you were kind of talking to people, and there was a couple moments where I'm like, oh, this is how movies and TV shows are made. I could do this. I like this part. But yeah, those days where you would get a call, they're like, listen, if you $100, go be in this music video, and you're like, all right, cool, I'll go be in a music video for $100.
Right.
So do that. And and then give you $100 bill.
It's
it was a weird experience.
It's like a gold mine when you're young. Like
Oh yeah, when I was 19 years old, right? I was like maybe 19, maybe 20.
Yeah.
And you get these calls, and they're like, hey, you want to do this? You'd like check your messages, and they'd be like, hey, if you want to on Saturday, you can come and do this thing, and they'll give you $100, $150, whatever. But that was part of it when you were saying that about like the deal of like, if you try to get a line in the movie, they'll give you more money, this whole big thing. And I witnessed that so many times, and I was always, it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing to watch.
Yeah.
But I did have a production person yell at me once because I was that person, and I'll tell you why. So we were on, it was on that show VIP, that like Pam Anderson show.
Oh yeah.
And I had driven out to this set. It was out by Magic Mountain. It was a long drive on a hot day. I remember I got out there and I was like, this show is stupid. I don't want to do this, but $100 is $100. Yep. So I go in there, and it was supposed to be like some kind of like action sequence thing was supposed to happen. Like somebody robs a bank in the middle of a mall, and everyone was supposed to run away from the robbers. And they were like, it's supposed to be pandemonium, crazy. So when you're running, we want you to really run frantic and really run like you're scared.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right, cool. And the first shot they had us do it, and I was just like, you're running. And they're like, no, we need more. And then they were running. And finally, I didn't realize like where I was running, but I ran, and I ran like a chimpanzee, basically. Like I ran like, imagine like King Louis in Jungle Book, where he's just like, and the legs and everything, and I ran like this the whole thing. And I remember I did the run, and somebody saw me and they were laughing. Like another person was laughing, and I was like, funny, whatever, right? And that was one of the times I heard cut, and the person came over and was like, what was that? What? They were mad. They were like, you just ruined a shot. Like, what if that was the shot? What if that was the one that worked?
Yeah.
You ran through it looking like that, and I was like, and when I'm in trouble, I started laughing. Just I can't help it. So I'm just like laughing the whole time. Where they're just like, "What is? I don't know. Wow, you told me to run. That's how I run." So but I did not get ever invited back to VIP.
Oh no.
But yeah, it's a little like micro moment of my life of just being like, yeah, sure, whatever, I'll do that. And then what happened was my buddy he didn't want to do it anymore, and then it was like, well, I'm not gonna do it unless because you said it's like when you go by yourself, it's like a whole weird
it's horrible,
experience. Yeah, but my buddy and I would go, and we would just like bullshit about comics and stuff like that, and it was like an easy $100.
Yeah. I never even got paid for the X-Men one.
Oh,
because I had to go back the second day to get
pick up your check.
Money. Yeah.
Like
that's what it's like when they did the first Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie. There's that scene where they're at the wrestling scene with Macho Man.
Yeah.
And nobody got paid for that. They brought everybody into that. I didn't do that one, but I heard about this later where they just were like, so there's everyone in that scene, but everyone would talk about them being in Spider-Man, but it was like, that
shot where you're like, no.
Yeah. One of the stupidest things I think I've ever done in my life is because of that Tobey Maguire. Not really stupid, but like maybe embarrassing is because of Spider-Man. I got a job. They were like, hey, if you want, you can come to this thing with $100. It's the graduation scene where Peter graduates high school. $100, but you got to come in a suit. And if you have any friends that want to go, invite them. We're like, all right, great. So invite a couple buddies of mine. We're all like, let's all go. We'll all do this Spider-Man movie. So we all go. We get in there, and we're all in suits because we look like we're graduating high school. Yeah. So we're all, being the scene, whatever. And there was this one guy that was there with us that we knew was like, he was an actor. He was like,
yes, of course.
I'm going to be an actor, and I am going to be in, director and a writer. I mean, he was so serious about it. And he started talking to us, and he was like, yeah, sometimes I'm Tobey Maguire's body double. And we didn't believe him. And we were like, no, you're not. And he was like, yeah, yesterday I was his body double all day, and he couldn't be there, and it was just for setting shots up. So all I did was talk to Chris and Dunst all day. And all of us were like, no, we don't believe you. He was such a showboater already that we were like, no, you're lying.
Yeah.
And but we could see her. We could see her and the rest of the cast because they're all there filming the scene for graduation day, which is like 2 seconds of that movie, but they're all over there and we could see them.
Yeah.
And he's like, I bet you she knows who I am. And I was like,
we got to set this guy
up. No way. All of us are like, no way, whatever. And he's like, no, I bet you if I walk over and I talk to her, she's gonna remember me. It was all day yesterday, so she's gonna remember me. And we're all like, oh, no, whatever. And again, I think I'm like 19 in this, right? So all of us guys are like, all right, he's like, I bet you, we'll make a bet. And all us guys are like, all right, cool. What's a good amount of money to bet on this? $5.
Okay.
We're gonna bet big money, right?
Yeah,
big money. So you're like, all right, $5. And he's like, all right, cool, I'm gonna go over there. And this dude, he walks over there, and this is far enough away where, I mean, it was a good distance, but clearly could see us, right?
Yeah.
But you can't hear the person, right?
Yeah.
And so we're all standing there, arms crossed, just in suits, just looking like the rest of our dogs, all right, cool, this guy's, he's gonna embarrass himself right now. And this dude, the moment he walks over there, he immediately starts talking to her and then turns around and points at us.
Oh my God.
Immediately.
No chill.
And is basically tells them, those guys over there just bet me that I didn't know you. And so then she's just like, whatever, right? So I was like, oh, he does know her? Well, then fuck it. I'm going to go talk to her.
Oh, no.
So I walk over there. And I was like, I'm gonna talk to her. And then I'm like, oh, so you know him? So we talked for a split second. And in my mind, it was an eternity, but it was probably nothing in time. But we were talking. And then she's like, all right, well, she's like, what was the bet? How much was the bet? I was like, $5. And she literally is like, I'm worth $5.
Oh.
It was like, okay. And I can't remember the last thing she said, but she said something that essentially was that's a lot of money to you. Not in a mean way, but in a way that was you guys were clearly making a bet that involved me, and you guys are the shitty people in this situation.
Yeah.
And I just remember being like, And gradually I could feel the other guys like creeping up behind me because they were also going to go through this process, and I was like, I have to stop. Myself in the middle of this Spider-Man movie. I must go, and gradually found my way out of the situation. But I'm reminded of that anytime I watch that scene. Anytime I see anything, I'm always like, or I see any of those actors, I'm always like, oh yeah, that time that we bet $5
that guy didn't know.
He actually knew her. Yeah.
Oh, that's amazing.
And that was Jason Schwartzman. No,
but that was it was no, I actually know that guy's name.
Did he go on? Like,
no, I don't want to be rude. So there were times where it was cool. Like I remember we were working on it was called American Sweethearts, and my buddy and I, we saw Christopher Walken from across the room.
Ooh.
And he looked at Christopher Walken, and he just went like this and like nodded, and then Christopher Walken looked right back at us and went like this and nodded. And we were like, all right, cool, we made it. We're in.
We made it.
We did it.
Coolest.
Like life is complete. Yeah. So there are times like that where you would end up having these weird moments and embarrass yourself, or just, cool little things. Yeah.
For several years when I worked at the newspaper, the Toronto Film Festival would obviously happen every year, and we would cover it extensively. And my gig for several years was I was supposed to go to all the parties and try and talk to as many celebrities as I could to get little celebrity tidbits.
Right.
And like, so drunk. So drunk. The only real positive one I had was there was a party held at a swingers club, because the movie was like swingers based or whatever.
Sure.
I'm like, oh my God, I've never been to a swingers club. Since then, I've been to many. But at the time, like, oh, this is gonna be so much fun. We get there, it was like a 3-story kind of place, and there's not a lot happening. And I'm pounding back drinks, myself and my editors, and we're on the second floor, and we look towards the back. It's the hot tub area, and I'm like, well, no one's in the hot tub. Like, let's just do this. And so I just strip out of my clothes. And I get into the hot tub, and my editors are laughing, and it's crazy, and it worked so well because people started to come up to me just to see what I was doing. So I started interviewing people from the hot tub, and at one point, this guy sees me, he starts laughing, he walks away, and he brings over Scott Speedman, who was quite big at the time from Felicity.
Yes,
Canadian actor, and Scott Speedman just starts laughing. He's like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, oh, I'm a reporter and asking people questions. I started interviewing him right there and then, because I knew he auditioned for Robin back in like the Batman
Forever.
Back in those days. And so I talked to him a lot about that and just like career stuff. And he's like, oh, let me get you a drink, man. What are you drinking? I'm like, oh, just a Jack and Coke. And he went and he came back, brought me a Jack and Coke, and somebody took a photo of this, and I'll send it to you later. It's the grossest photo of me you've ever seen. But I forgot that I just shaved a porn stash for this evening.
Dude, I knew I saw a picture of this. I knew as you were telling the story, I was like, I have seen a picture of this.
I was like, I'm holding the drink, just kind of like drowsy looking, but I look like a wet otter, like a hairless otter with like this porn stash. And Scott Speedman's like the most perfect specimen of a human being. Like, he's got all these neck muscles, and he's laughing, and it's like, yeah, there's never been a greater contrast in what a man could be in that photo.
Oh, that's awesome.
But it inspired me. Like, every year at Film Fest, I would just like, maybe have one too many drinks, but I would always get into like some sort of dumb trouble with like usually minor league celebrities. And it was a fun few years.
That's awesome.
Yeah. All right, I have to go now. I can hear things going on outside my family outside that I have to go help with.
Yeah,
I'm
glad we cracked this.
I think we did. Yeah, we really broke the story. Thank you, gentlemen. For hanging out.
I mean, that's easy, right? Daredevil lawyers.
Yeah,
crime scientists
representing Barry.
Yeah, sure, that's easy. Done. Yeah.
Crossover.
Done.
We did it.
Yeah, good show.
Millions of dollars.
Yeah.
But for real, it'll never happen.
No, but that's right. Yeah. The other added bonus is don't even worry about it because it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But gentlemen, well, thank you very much for shooting the shit and sharing your insights on everything. And maybe we'll do this again sometime, or maybe we just birthed your own show where it's just like Josh and Chip and Josh, just gonna talk about getting in hot
About
tubs. And
everything and anything. Yeah.
what other movies has Josh been in? I don't know, but we're gonna find out. Episode
I have a
96.
list somewhere.
Yeah.
But thanks a lot
Sounds
for watching.
perfect.
So long, everybody. And thanks a lot for watching.
All right, bro. See you guys later.
Thanks out.
And that was that. I want to thank Josh and Chip for coming to the show. Thank you for watching it. And of course, don't forget to like this video. It helps us out. Subscribe to the channel. Click the bell for notifications so you know every time we put out either a free scripted show or a live show. We do a ton of those here on Comic Pop. We'll see you guys next week.